The Shadow Man. A few years back, a man bought an old house at the edge of town. Many people thought he was crazy, for the house was said to be haunted by the Shadow Man. There was an old legend about the frightening specter that lurked in that old house. It was said that every night at midnight, the Shadow Man would start walking up the basement stairs. Creak, creak. You could hear his footsteps on the old wooden steps. The Shadow Man would then rattle the doorknob at the top of the stairs, and then let himself into the house. People didn't know exactly what would happen if the Shadow Man caught you, but no one dared stick around long enough to find out. No one until the man who bought the haunted house. This man was either very brave or very foolish, but he didn't seem bothered by the stories. The man didn't believe in ghosts, after all. When the townsfolk told the man the story of the Shadow Man, he simply laughed and told them it was a bunch of nonsense. And so he moved into the house. The day passed, and nothing was out of place. The man smiled to himself as he thought about how silly the stories were. But when the sun set and the chill of night fell, the man wasn't feeling quite so good. After a while, the man suddenly felt as if he wasn't alone. It felt as if someone, or something, was watching him. This sent shivers down his spine. But the man did not believe in ghosts. He laughed at himself for feeling silly. He settled back down in his chair and tried to relax. But this was not easy, as only a moment later he heard something. Creak, creak. The man's heart started beating quickly. He clearly heard the sound of squeaking boards. Something was walking up a basement stairs. Frightened, the man shouted out, and at the sound of his voice, the creaking stopped. The man was very scared now, but he still didn't want to believe in the stories. So he got up and walked up to the basement door. Slowly, the man reached out and opened the door. The stairway was quite creepy. The old gnarled steps faded into total darkness at the bottom. But there, deep in the darkness, was clearly the shape of a man. He was darker than even the shadows around him, and he wore a wide brim hat. The only bit of light came from the tiny pinpricks that seemed to be his eyes. Just as quickly as the man saw the shadowy figure, it disappeared. The man was very frightened now, but he was even more stubborn. He shook his head and snapped the door shut. He decided that he must be seeing things because he was tired. And so the man turned and walked away from the door. He would go upstairs to bed right away. But as the man walked through the house, he felt eyes on him again. Someone was watching him. Quickly, the man looked over his shoulder. Just then, the doorknob on the basement door began to jiggle. With a terrible squeak, it opened all on its own, and out from the darkness reached a long and bony, shadowy hand. Terrified, the man ran to the nearest switch and turned on the lights. And just like that, the hand was gone. The man's heart was pounding now. He shook his head again. He did not believe in ghosts. He was very, very tired. He'd get some sleep, and everything would be better. He decided this and continued through the house. He left the light on behind, just in case, though. The man had nearly calmed himself down by the time he got to the hallway. Then, the light from the other room suddenly went out. He stood in near total darkness. And worse yet, the light switch was all the way on the other side of the hall. The man was now terrified. He ran as quickly as he could down the hallway and reached for the light switch. Before switching it, the man looked over his shoulder. To his horror, the Shadow Man was there, standing halfway down the hallway. It stood perfectly still, its pinprick eyes locked onto the man. Quickly, the man turned on the lights, and once again, the Shadow Man disappeared. The man was so scared that he ran as fast as he could back to his room, hitting the lights in every room he passed through. When he finally got to his bedroom, the man turned on the lamp next to his bed and locked the door shut behind him. His heart was pounding in his chest, but still the man was stubborn. He shook his head and told himself he was really being silly. There had to be an explanation for what was happening. Something that didn't have anything to do with ghosts. He started to believe his own words until the light flowing under his door from the hallway suddenly went out. The man yelped in fear and crawled into his bed. He did not believe in ghosts. Creak. The man pulled the blankets up to his chin. He did not believe in ghosts. Creak. The doorknob began to rattle, but he did not believe in ghosts. Suddenly, the lamp next to the man's bed went out, and the room was filled with darkness. And right at the foot of his bed stood the Shadow Man, his pinprick eyes looking down on him. Suddenly, the man supposed, maybe he really did believe in ghosts, after all.